For Esther, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. She is now the queen, as we learned last week, and she is placed in a position where she can either reach out to save her people or her people could be destroyed. And I think in today's world, we're kind of in that same boat. We have an opportunity as Christian believers and people who believe in Jesus Christ, we could reach out and save our people, or we can let them go to destruction. So in a way, for Esther, it was such a time as this, but for us, I think it's kind of screaming the same thing. We are here for such a time as this. As you know, we're continuing our sermon series called Our Schools Matter. Why are we? Because our schools, in fact, do matter. Today was not your first day back to school, but your first week back to school. So your first Wednesday night since school has started. Are you loving school so far? No, yeah? I can understand that. You don't love school, I understand. You got to go to school to learn all day, which here before too long, our seniors will have to pay to get that education. So you're going to pay to sit and learn all day. You also come into contact with the friends. For some of you, that's a good thing. For some of you, that's a bad thing. You come into contact with both those that you love and those that hate you. And so you're in that moment where you're like, oh no, school has started once again. What do I do? But here's the thing, your school matters. The people in your school today, Ethan, they matter. The people that you like, they matter. And the people that you don't like, they matter too. Everyone in your school system matters. Your teachers, your principals, your coaches, your leaders, those at the lunch table, everybody matters. We believe in your school. But tonight I don't want to talk about simply your school system because you've had enough of school already, right? You don't want to think about it anymore, right? Okay, cool. Many of you don't, but I understand that. So we are going to be discussing Esther. Esther was around for such a time as this. As we learned last week, an interesting situation happened. Here, King Xerxes, he is married to this queen named Vashti, and this queen disobeys King Xerxes, and so King Xerxes gets mad. He basically says, hey, because of your disobedience, you will no longer be the queen, so I'm looking for a new queen. So they have this nice, massive beauty pageant, and Esther is the chosen one. She would be the new queen who just so happens to be a Jew. And in that book, in that story, next thing you know, you have this evil man by the name of Haman, who Mordecai wronged because he didn't bow down to worship Haman, and Haman didn't like that, so he's like, you know what, we're going to kill Haman, or no, we're going to kill Mordecai, and we're going to kill all the Jews in the process. Man, what a time to be alive if you're a Jew. People hate you and people want to destroy you. What better place to live than that, right? Well, that's the boat that they find themselves in. So something needs to take place. A queen who is a Jew, in this moment, she must have the courage to step on up, save the day, make a difference. Tonight, we're going to continue to learn about the story of how a lady who could have kept quiet, or she could have spoke up to save the day, what would she do in a moment like this? What would she do with the power that she has now been given? What would she do, even if she had to bend the rules a little bit for a greater purpose and a greater cause? I don't know if you've ever been like me, but maybe some of you kind of bend the rules to get to the place that you want to go sometimes. Maybe it's for the greater good. For instance, if your sister's in trouble and you know your sister's in trouble, you kind of bend the rules to get her out of trouble. You know what I mean? It's probably not the best thing to do, but for her safety, it's the right thing to do. You understand what I mean? Or maybe you forget to study for your math quiz, and you're looking at that test, and your neighbor's paper's looking mighty nice, and you think to yourself, if I just look over there real quick, it'll make my test grade better, right? Please don't do that. Please don't do that. But it happens. It happens. Sometimes people bend the rules because they think that they're going to receive a better outcome. For Esther, she was in that same boat. You see, she couldn't approach the king, even though that she knew the plot of Haman, unless the king asked her to come into his presence. And so in that moment, what was she to do? If she kept quiet, her people would die. But if she speaks up, she risks her own life, and her own life could be taken away. What do you do in a moment like that? How do you bend the rules for the good of your people, but yet do the right thing in the process? Tonight, we're going to be learning about that. Esther had a responsibility to own her influence. And today, that's my challenge to you. Own your influence. If you say that you're a Christian, own it. And let your influence be made known to the whole world. There are people around you at your school system, at your family, in your home, that you have influence over. How are you influencing them? Are you doing what's right for them, or are you taking them away from God? We have to own our influence. Own who God has called us to be and make the most of the opportunities that are granted. There's the one story I want to share with you before I get into a couple of illustrations. In high school, I had an opportunity to pray over my entire athletic class, right? And so I'm talking about the football team, the baseball team, the volleyball team, the band. I had an opportunity to pray over all of them at this sweet little athletic awards banquet. I had a chance to own my influence, but you know what I decided to do? I chickened out, Hope. Scared me. I had to stand in front of everybody and pray. I wasn't willing to do that at that time as a junior in high school. I was terrified. Many of you tonight understand what I'm currently going through. Unless you're Logan and you pray over your entire school like no one's business. But that takes some great courage and guts. I didn't have that as a junior in high school. But then I had an opportunity to do the same thing my senior year, and I owned my influence. I took advantage of the situation and prayed over my entire student body class. So what do we do with the moments of influence that we're given? Tonight I want to share with you a couple of examples of people who own their influence to better the cause of Christ. The first man, as the junior hires know, because we're doing a study in Sunday school class, is a man by the name of Tim Tebow. Y'all know Tim Tebow. Y'all probably know Tim Tebow from the Denver Broncos, the time he beat the Steelers in the playoffs. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you remember him for when he was traded about 5 million times to another team. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you know him as the baseball player who's now playing minor league baseball. Or maybe you just seen his picture and you had a crush on him, Allie and Hope. Yep. I don't know. First thing that came to my mind. Or maybe you've never seen this guy in your life before and you're just saying, hey, that's a football player. Well, in college, he played for a national championship. He led his team to win the national championship. And on game day, he wore this eye black. You might be able to see it in the picture. He has this eye black underneath his eyes, just right there, literally. His entire team was doing it, and he decided that he would do the same thing, but make it a little bit more fancy and write John 3:16 on it. The night of the national championship, check this out. The night of the national championship, I believe 94 million people Googled what John 3:16 stands for. He owned his influence, and it potentially changed a lot of lives. Pretty powerful. There's also an unbelievably tasty burger place called In-N-Out Burger, right? In-N-Out Burger is the best. Quick side note, have you ever noticed that Christian fast food organizations are like the best ever? For instance, In-N-Out Burger is like one of the best burger places ever. If you go to California, they say it's even better than Whataburger. Shh. Also, Chick-fil-A, they're closed on Sundays, but they are like the greatest chicken place of all time. You know what I'm talking about? Why is it that Christian organizations are like the best fast food places ever? I don't know. But in In-N-Out, on their cups and on their sweet fry baskets, guess what? They have scripture verses on those bad boys. They know to own their influence, and they do that every day. Here's another one that kind of shocked me a little bit. I didn't realize that this was a Christian organization. It's called Forever 21. Forever 21 is a Christian organization. On the bottom of those bags, guess what you'll find? John 3:16. Alex, did you say something? There you go. Yeah, mind blown. John 3:16 on the bottom of their bag. Unbelievable. Teenagers shop there. Moms shop there. People just trying to be hip shop there. Some guys shop there. It's a popular place, and guess what? Shh. They are owning their influence in spreading the gospel through a scripture verse on the bottom of the bag. Powerful stuff. How many of us are willing to do similar things like that? Esther was given a similar situation to do that, right? She was placed in a moment where she could either keep silent and her people be destroyed, or she could step up, own her influence, and tell the truth to the king, even if the king didn't ask for her. So tonight, let's look into that. The first thing that I noticed Esther being willing to do, she was willing to listen to the right voices. In our life, guess what? People are talking to us, whether we want to hear it or not. We have voices from the left, the right, the north, the south, everybody telling us how to live our life. The question is, what voices are we listening to? Are we listening to the voices of our mother and father who actually do care for us? Are we listening to our youth pastors and leaders and sponsors and church pastors who tell us if we live our life devoted to God, we might actually be better? Or are we listening to, like, Hollywood, who says that homosexuality is okay and that alcohol and drinking and things like that are okay? Who are we listening to in that moment? Realize that got deep real quick. But who are we listening to in those moments? Because who you listen to kind of determines your future and where you go. I encourage you, listen to the right voice. Listen to the right voice, because if you listen to the right voice, you're going to find yourself in a much better spot. And Esther was willing to do that. So if you have your Bible, go and look with me tonight at Esther chapter 2, verse 20. Esther continued to keep her family background and nationality a secret. She was still following Mordecai's direction, just as she did when she lived in his home. So even though the queen was now away from Mordecai, she still listened to the advice of Mordecai. Mordecai told her, hey, when you go to the palace, keep your nationality and identity secret. And it's a good thing that she did, because if she would have came out and told the king from the very get-go that I am a Jew, guess what happens? She's going to get killed as soon as the king offers that decree. But she didn't do that. She was listening to Mordecai's advice. And Mordecai is not necessarily her father. It's actually her cousin. When her family died, Mordecai decided, you know what, I'm going to take this girl in, and I'm going to raise her in the ways of the Lord. And so, kind of like a fatherly figure, that's what Mordecai was doing. So she listened to Mordecai and followed his instruction. Because of that, it placed her in a much better situation. Listen to the right voices and the people in your life. Your youth leaders, youth pastors, church pastors, we're here to lead you right. Yes, sometimes we correct you when you do bad things. We don't enjoy that, but that's our job, because we believe in you, we believe in your future, we believe in where you're going. We see the big picture, not the short-term picture that a lot of teenagers like to look at. We understand what it's going to be like 20 years down the road, and we're trying to prepare you for that. So listen to the right advice. Listen to the right advice. Esther was also willing to do something else. She was willing to understand the seasons in her life. She just got through 12 months of beauty treatments. The spa, the oils, the anointings, getting the skin in tip-top shape the way it was supposed to be. She just went through that process. And now she's in a different season, a season where she either has to stand up or remain silent. What would she do? Esther chapter 4, 13 through 14. Mordecai sent this reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace you will escape when all the other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at this time, at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen just for such a time as this?" She had a season to remain silent. She had a season for beauty treatment. She had a season before she became queen. Now her season was different. She was on the tipping point. Will I step up, save the day, or will I be quiet? Will I be Batman or Superman, or will I be the villain? Will I step up and make a difference, or will I let the world just continue to do what the world does, although we know it leads to destruction? What am I going to do with my time? Mordecai said, "Hey, you might have been put in the position that you are for such a time as this." And students, I believe that the same is for you today. That you were created, that you were put in the school system that you're in, that you were placed on this earth right now for such a time as this. There's a reason that you were created. You weren't created just to live. No, there's a reason that you're here. There's a reason why you have the passions that you do. There's a reason that you have the talents that you do. There's a reason that you have the skill and knowledge that you do. Are you willing to own your influence and make a difference through the talents that you've been given? Are you willing to look at that teetering point where you could go, where you could remain silent? Are you willing to do something with that moment? Like Esther. Esther understood the seasons, but it also goes further than that. Esther was willing to utilize her resources. Esther was willing to utilize her resources. You see, as queen, she had new things at her disposal. She had an opportunity to have eunuchs and concubines and other people around her that were under her control. Yes, she had a relationship with the king, but she also had a lot of power as well. Was she willing to utilize her resources to save the Jews? Or would she remain silent again? No, Esther was willing to utilize what she had. And so she talked with Mordecai, and they came up with this plan. This plan to reveal Haman's strategy to the king. But before they just went out and accomplished that plan, no, groundwork had to be taken. Prayer and fasting must be taken care of, because this could literally cost her life if she goes through with it. Prayer and fasting had to be taken care of. Setting up 2 banquets had to be taken care of. If not, her life could be taken away. I said 2 banquets. It's actually just 1 banquet. My mistake. But let's see what she does. Esther chapter 7. Nope, said the wrong thing. Esther chapter 4, 15 through 17. This is what Esther does. This is how she utilizes her resources. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai: "Go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat anything or drink anything for 3 days, 3 nights or days. My maids and I will do the same. And then, though it is against the law, I will go in to see the king. If I must die, I must die." So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him to do. As we've already discussed, she couldn't go see the king alone unless the king ordered her to do so. Understanding the gravity of that fact, she said, "I have to do something, because if I just do this on my own power, if I must die, I die." So she understood that if she gets people to pray and fast with her, both her own staff and Mordecai's friends and family and the people of Susa, then maybe God will step in and intervene and do something amazing. So in order to own her moment, in order to get the most out of her influence, she relied on the power of God to show Haman's wicked plans. And then in Esther chapter 5, 6 through 8, we kind of see this thing come to a point. We see the moment where she enters into the king's presence. What's going to happen? And while they were drinking wine, reminder, this is at the banquet, while they were drinking wine, the king said to Esther, "Now tell me what you really want. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it's half of the kingdom." Esther replied, "This is my request and deepest wish. If I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my request and do what I ask, please come with Haman tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for you. Then I will explain everything. I will explain what this is all about." So she had people of influence in her life that could help. She also had resources like a banquet, like the meals, like the drink. So she's utilizing her resources to save her people. Next thing she was willing to do, she was willing to walk in wisdom. After this moment, she was still allowing herself to be led by Mordecai in his instruction. But not only that, it wasn't just Mordecai's instruction, but it was really divine wisdom from above. Because let's face it, without divine wisdom from above, we make some dumb mistakes, right? Oh, yes, we do. I've made my fair share. They're not always fun. They get me into a lot of trouble. But she was willing to hear the voice of God, listen to him, follow his instruction to make a difference in her Jew's life. And so this is kind of what she did. Esther chapter 7, 2 through 6. The king comes in, meets with her once again. On this second occasion, while they were drinking wine, the king again said to Esther, "Tell me what you want, Queen Esther. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it's half the kingdom." Queen Esther replied, "If I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my request, I ask that my life and the lives of my people be spared. For my people and I have been sold to those who would kill, slaughter, and annihilate us. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I could remain quiet, for that would be too trivial a matter to warrant disturbing the king." And then the king says this, "Who does such a thing? Who would do such a thing? Who would be so presumptuous as to touch you?" Esther replied, "This wicked Haman is our adversary and our enemy." At that moment, Haman grew pale with fright before the king and queen. If Esther would have created this massive plan on her own, without praying, without fasting, without following the wisdom of her leaders and that of God, guess what? Her life would probably be taken away. But no, she listened to God, she listened to Mordecai, she followed through on the plan, and revealed the true nature of Haman. So you know what? The king finds out about this. What does he do? He takes Haman, he impales him on a pole. His life is gone. Then you know what he does after that? If you didn't see in that lovely, not so exciting countdown video we played earlier, you know what happens next? The king makes a decree to protect all of the Jews. He basically says, "Hey, Jews, these people want to come take your life. What I want you to do, I want you to take theirs." Powerful stuff. The queen, Esther, had to follow what we just mentioned, because if she did not, no telling what would have happened. No telling what would have happened. She was willing to own her position, own her influence, to save the day for her people. Are we willing to do the same for our people? So tonight, here's what I encourage you to do. Trust in your leaders. Trust the leaders in your life, because I promise you, all leadership is a gift from God. They're put in this place for you so that you can grow and become the people He wants you to be. It's not for my own glory. It's not for Brianna's own glory. It's not for Pastor Plunk's own glory. It's not for your teachers. It's not for your coaches. No, they work for you because they believe in you. They love you. And their job and their goal is to lead you right. I encourage you, trust in those. The way Esther trusted in Mordecai, trust your leaders. Support your leaders. Stand for your leaders. When people are spreading rumors about your leaders, say, that's just not true. We know our leaders. And there are people of influence who want to make a difference for God, and not a people that's trying to spread rumors and lies about people. It's not who they are. So trust your leaders. Trust your parents. Your parents love you. They care about you. They believe in you. When they want you to do a certain thing, they do it for a reason. When they get on to you for missing your curfew, they do it for a reason. Your parents love you. They want you to be the best you can be, so trust them. Trust the leaders in your life. Not only that, but leave your comfort zone. Sitting in these chairs is pretty comfortable as a Christian. Coming into these walls is pretty easy. It's a service. You know what you're going to get the majority of the time. But I encourage you, if you want to own your influence, guess what? You got to be a Christian outside as well. You got to stand for God out there as well. The world might think that living away from God is better. I promise you it's not. Because my relationship with Christ has given me more freedom, more fun, more enjoyment than anything else. So leave your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to share your faith with people and live your life loud for Christ. Get out of that comfort zone. Because I promise you, if you do, you can lead a lot of people to Christ. For Tim Tebow, he was on his comfort zone on a football field. But was that easy to write John 3:16 on your face? Where everybody's watching? Probably not. For Chick-fil-A, for In-N-Out Burger, probably be much easier to leave the scripture out of it, leave the Christian music out of it. But yet, they leave it in there, and they make a difference for people's life. Leave your comfort zone. Bring others into the mix. A team is stronger when everybody's working together, when everybody's one, when everybody's moving forward. Hence the name One Student Ministries. We believe, and our goal is that we are one body, going together for Christ. It's hard to do it alone, but if you go in pairs, if you go in twos, 3x3s, 4x4s, it makes it a lot easier. Don't live your Christian faith alone. And lastly, be willing to take risks. Esther could have said, I'm done. I'm not going to take a risk. I'm going to remain silent. I quit. I'm just going to be the queen, just going to enjoy what I have. But no, she took a risk. She went to talk to king, even though she wasn't supposed to. And because of that, it saved the day for the Jews. For you, take risks. Take calculated risks. Make sure the risks that you're taking are God-ordained and not you-focused. But see that person sitting alone and go talk to them. Go up to the person that makes fun of you and say, hey, I just want you to know that I care about you. Take risks. Let God use you so that you can make a difference. If we can follow that of Esther, there was no telling what we can do with our life. And Jay, if you want to come to the piano at this time. I strongly believe that we were created for such a time as this. You weren't living in the day of Esther for a reason, because God wanted you here. We're facing the same thing. God's people are fading away. They're giving up on the church. They're saying, you know what, I don't want this. But what are we going to do to save the life of our people? What are we going to do to save the life of our friends, our school system? Because our school matters. What are we going to do? Are we going to own our influence, or are we going to let that just kind of fall down the shore?